I just messed that up. Anyhow, how's everyone doing today? Happy Tuesday. Um, I was gonna delete a scene I had there in OBS, and I forgot it was going to switch when I did that. So that's why we're jumping in early. But I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I had an interesting weekend, specifically starting with Sunday. Has anyone done anything interesting on their weekend? Mine was not so pleasant, actually. Well, Sunday night, so for this last week or so, I've been having this last 3 weeks. I've been having this thing in my brain where it's like waves going from the top of my head to the front of my head, and then it kind of gets to my eyes, and it's just been kind of annoying. And then Sunday night, it got pretty bad, and I kind of panicked. Went to the ER, got a CT. Everything's fine there. Saw some doctors yesterday and stuff. I have an appointment for an MRI. They're gonna make an appointment for a neurological consult, and so that's been kind of crazy. Although I did last night, I haven't been able to sleep because Sunday night I just couldn't sleep because this whole wave just hitting my eyes, and then it's really annoying. And then yesterday I did take a nap. I still had to deal with the horrors of waking up and stuff. But last night I also did take alprazolam, which is an anti-anxiety medicine. I took that, so I had some from a long time ago, and I slept fine. I haven't had any problems. I can still feel the waves still there in my brain. But it's so subdued. It's pretty crazy. I'm just gonna be curious how long the alprazolam lasts, which would be kind of interesting to see. Hopefully, that'll give me what I need to help get this whatever this is figured out. But we'll see. I don't know. So that's my weekend mostly. Um, we also did we had D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, on Sunday, and we worked on a new, kind of putting things together a little bit collaboratively, a new campaign setting in D&D. So we kind of worked on that. So that was a few hours. So that was kind of our session 0, and then 2 weeks from now we'll get into it. I'm playing a Earth Genasi fighter who will be going Rune Knight. Hold on a second. Sorry. So, yeah, Earth Genasi fighter, and I'll be using the Rune Knight as kind of if you're familiar with Eberron, it'll be kind of a dragon marked sort of a thing. That's kind of how I will play it. He's a scion of some elemental god, and this is how the elements, the dragon mark, if you will, of this god is manifesting through this Rune Knight class. So that'll be interesting. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all that's going on for me. How about you guys? What's happening with you with your guys this weekend? Anything? I was playing some more of that Humankind, although I've kind of slowed down because of my brain issues a little bit. But yeah. So the first game I just destroyed, and the second game I was in second place, and then I'm on my third game, and it's yeah, mine's second or third place. I can't don't remember which, but I wanted to do a trading sort of game, but we were so close together that it was just all combat. I don't make very many friends that way, so it's been a struggle. So yeah, that's pretty much me. Humankind, brain problems, D&D. That's my weekend. Okay, well let's go ahead and get started. Since it's super quiet as it has been. I couldn't find a way to watch this fucking Bloomberg. Their bullshit. Oh, Tony Blairfriend, how you doing? I'm good. Just been watching the Paralympics. Okay, I don't know if you know about that, but I was. Oh, you do. And movement disorder called dystonia. Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry to hear that. But cool. How are the Paralympics going? Paralympics. I don't watch any Olympics at all. It's just don't have time, first of all. But it's just over the years, it's lost its I don't know, allure, I guess. Um, I don't even watch football. I'll watch American football. If the Green Bay Packers are playing, but even that, I didn't see anything last year. I saw maybe 3 games the year before. It's just so I'm just so busy. Don't have access to watch it either. That's part of the problem. I swear to God that my ESPN package through Disney Plus would have it, but it doesn't have it. So I've been sitting here going, Durr. I get a blue badge and get to skip some questions. Okay, some benefit there. Okay, all right. Good for you. Yeah, so I'm okay. I don't know if you heard the beginning when I was talking about my brain issues over the weekend. So that was happening, but I seem to be doing okay right now. We had D&D this weekend, some Humankind, and yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. Get a blue badge. That's pretty funny. I don't, pretty sure I don't have one. Oh yeah, so it's been kind of building for 3 weeks. It's just waves going from like the top of my head to the front of my head, and then it hits my eyes, and it was really bad on Sunday. So I went to the emergency room. I had a CT scan. I've got an appointment for a CAT scan, MRI, and I've saw 2 doctors yesterday. Although last night I did take, it's really scary because if I do get some sleep, I wake up with it, and it's like attacking my eyes. And then I took alprazolam last night, which I've had for a long time, like a decade. I haven't taken it in a long time. Well, actually, I have taken it recently a little bit, but it's an anti-anxiety medication. I took that last night, and it's like I'm perfectly fine. And I can feel it there. It exists still, but I feel just fine. I took it at like 10 o'clock last night, and right now I'm still doing okay. Maybe this will last me a few days. Um, I making noise, so I'm not sure. Hopefully, hope it gets hammering your 10 and you shit yourself. Well, I'm a little older. Hopefully, I'll be able to handle it a little better. I don't mind the. Actually, it's noisy too, isn't it? I think MRIs are fairly noisy. But yeah, I don't have a problem with claustrophobia. I've done sensory deprivation tanks once before, which was an experience. So yeah, they put you to sleep. Oh, okay. You're freaking out that much. Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't have a problem with it. It'd be interesting just to see there and watch it, and see what happens and see how loud it really is. Yeah. So we'll see. It's just going to the doctor is just there's nothing that none of my symptoms trigger off anything that would normally be looking for, like heart attack, stroke, migraines, which are the usuals, and things like that. So there's nothing like that. There's no pain. It's just waves cycling from the top to the front. So, and now the fact that alprazolam works is probably going to be even more confusing. So I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. Got a chiropractor tomorrow, doctor appointment next week, and MRI next week because that's the soonest they can get me in. It's crazy. Yeah, so there we go. Um, my daughter is super loud. Okay, it's not the daughter, it's the cat. Okay, it's the cat playing with something. All right, we'll let him play with that for a little bit. Okay, so, and I spelled Happy Tuesday wrong. Good stuff there. It also has me kind of in a slight brain fog too, which has also been annoying. Slight, ever so slight brain fog. And I'd wondered if that may have been an indicator that I was infected with COVID at some point and maybe dealing with, long haul COVID in a minor way, because that brain fog can be a part of COVID. putting me to sleep with an oxygen mask. Tasted like toothpaste, and the doctor was asking me if I have a girlfriend, and I was out in like 15 seconds. Nice. Then literally what felt like 3 seconds later, I woke up being wheeled down a hospital. Oh, wow. Yeah, I've never had that happen. I've been very lucky, very healthy, my life. I've only broken one bone in my toe, which was a freak fucking accident. Other than that, I've been, I have a fairly strong immune system, fortunately. So I haven't had any major things happen. Although, stress is a thing. Immune system won't help you with that. There we go. Oh my god. Getting these links prepared for today has been a pain in the ass because of all these fucking paywalls. Like there's another. I've broken my arms. Broke one twice and the other once. Jesus. Oh yeah, I bet. I couldn't imagine. Just balance is kind of important. And if you have something that messes with that, Jesus, dude. Yikes. Yeah, I broke my toe and it was the most painful thing I ever felt. And I wasn't able to walk properly for like a year. And about total of 6 months later than that, I was walking normally. Right now it clicks. I can feel like the bone needs to click, so I kind of stretch, then it break. The thing will click, and it's annoying. Other than that, I walk just fine. Thankfully. Wow. Both your arms. I think my sister's broken. I know she broke one of her arms. That was from me tackling her when she was young. Oh, and she broke another one by jumping off that's right, jumping off a garage when we were really young. Something so small, but it can actually fuck up a lot of your body. Oh yeah, it is. It really was annoying. It wasn't as bad as breaking your arm because that's how you interact with the world. It's more just hobbling a little bit, going to and from places, which is less annoying than having your balance disturbed or your arms broken. It was just painful, but painful and annoying. Yeah. Yikes. Medical problems, not fun. Not fun at all. All right. Let's go into our standard doomerism here. We cover the 3 C's here: capitalism, climate change, and coronavirus, and throwing in a splash of future tech and sustainability. We actually have some future tech and sustainability coming up here today, so a little more variety than the doomerism that we normally cover today. All right, you guys ready? Climate disaster, end of the world stuff, then we'll get into a little more positive things. All right. Chinese cities aren't ready for climate disasters. As global warming brings more extreme weather, there's unprecedented public discussion over what needs to be done to prepare for worsening floods and heat waves. Okay, now to be fair, this isn't Chinese cities. This is every single fucking city in pretty much the world. Because unless, like my policies say, right, we need to effectively preferably rebuild all of our cities from the ground up and centralize them, having mass transportation as the source of it, sustainable energy, and all that sort of stuff involved. But also, more importantly, designed with climate change in mind. Specifically, what are the sort of things that are going to happen in this area? Or even some that might not, just to make sure we are. Like planning for acid rain is a big thing, because as we go on, the rain is going to become more acidic, so we have to start looking at how our exteriors can be designed to deal with acid rain. And of course, flooding, right? Fires, and the smoke and all that sort of stuff. We need to, every single city in the world needs to be redesigned and rebuilt from the ground up to deal with climate change. That needs to happen. So this isn't a China a China-only thing. The United States, as we have, and Europe and everywhere else, as we have seen, is woefully unprepared for this. And that's the way it's going to be, because there's no money to be made. I mean, actually, there's a shitload of money to be made in building a brand new city from the ground up with mass transportation, right? There's a shitload of money to be made in doing that. Okay, man. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great week. And yeah, we'll see you later, man. Thank you so much. But so yeah, there's a lot of money to be made in doing that, making that preparation. But where does that money come from? The money is hard to find on a local level, on a city level, on a county level. And how do you fund on a city or county level building a brand new city? This has to be done on a on a national level, or it's not going to get done. And of course, people in Congress, they don't fucking care. They don't get paid to care. So it's not going to happen. So millions and millions of dollars in damage and lives are going to be lost. All right, here we go. Climate change is making China's annual summer floods worse, as it is around the world. In cities housing millions of people aren't prepared to handle the damage. Record-breaking rainfall in the central province of Henan killed more than 300 people last month, while downpours continue to swamp cities in several other regions. 2 people died last week in Beijing after they were trapped in a car that was submerged under a bridge. The tragedies are making it clear to policymakers and citizens that Chinese cities, even the capital, are far from ready for the extreme weather events wrought by global warming. It's not just the threat of floods. Greenpeace research has shown that China's key metropolises are at risk of longer and hotter summers in the decades to come. Okay, so let's go to my policies here, just because I have something specifically about this, and this is important. And this is in what I talk about my policies is exactly what I'm looking at fixing. Where would that be? I think maybe it's here. Okay, so here. So the U.S. government will have 1 year to create a 5-year plan to combat climate change in the U.S. and worldwide, which should include blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's not the one. Okay, so here. Disaster preparation. We need to do serious research on how we can prepare ourselves for climate change and for such disasters as supervolcanoes, raging forest fires, rising sea levels, hurricanes, earthquakes, pandemics, food and water shortages, increasingly acidic rains in oceans, and increasingly hotter temperatures. Instead of being caught with our pants down like has happened in Puerto Rico, Atlanta, China, all the other places in the world where the floods have been happening and people have been dying, that have been struck by environmental tragedy where the U.S. government has completely, totally failed, leaving our people to suffer and die. This is especially important with somewhere near 2.4 billion people, a third of humanity, living on the coast, that will end up being climate refugees within the next 50 to 100 years. So we need to have a nationwide analysis and report about which areas will be affected and how from those sorts of disasters. Come up with a system to prevent, mitigate, or work with such disasters and its damage or effects, such as forming areas to accommodate rising water levels, such as some of the Nordic countries are doing. We need drastic infrastructure evolution so that these affected populations and communities can either compensate for the dramatic environmental changes without an issue, or we can move these entire communities out of the way of these issues into new sustainable and disaster-resistant cities, right? So do I go about that down here? So building from the cities from the ground up, need to be made disaster proof on an area's survey and analysis, taking into account climate change eventualities, right? Sustainable materials, weather and pest resistant, right? And all sorts of stuff. So that's the sort of things we need to be doing globally. We need to be saying, hey, climate change is happening. We're pretty much fucked. So we need to start preparing for it. And part of the way we can do that is having a lot of using earth scrapers, putting our buildings underground at the very least, so that they're protected from, the heat, and you require less energy for cooling because you're under the ground. You have the advantage of that. Okay, year after year, officials have vowed to better prepare the country to deal with such disasters. So far, that response, at least when it comes to heavy rains, has focused on building infrastructure such as dams, dikes, and subsurface drainage systems. Those investments have played an important role in bringing the death toll down from historical records, but have proved woefully inadequate to face the increasingly dangerous weather. These projects are meant to help the country face general floods, not extreme events like the one that hit Henan this year, said Liu Junyan, a climate campaigner at Greenpeace East Asia. Most infrastructure was made to protect cities from floods that are the worst in 10 or 20 years, but it's unrealistic to upgrade all infrastructure to be able to face a flood that's the worst in 100 years. In the wake of Henan's floods, Chinese social media users began mocking the country's flagship Sponge Cities project that was launched in 2015. The initiative seeks to use gardens, scenic wetland parks, permeable pavements, and underground storage tanks to soak up heavy precipitation and release it slowly into the river and reservoirs. Oh, that's an interesting concept. The label Sponge City label has at times been used by provincial officials and companies to gain political support and government money in order to win approval for new construction work. Bloomberg Green reported last year. The projects were sometimes built on forests and wetlands that would otherwise have helped absorb the floodwater. Of course, once the new developments are built, there can be little incentive to invest in their upkeep. China isn't alone. Cities all over the world are grappling with how to adapt to changing climate as they battle everything from drought in California to heat waves in France and Spain. A report by the nonprofit CDP that analyzed more than 800 cities showed 43% of them don't have a plan to deal with more extreme weather. Only 59% of the cities have conducted a risk and vulnerability assessment, one of the first steps to developing a climate adaptation strategy, leaving more than 400 million people at risk. You know, pretty much every single person in the world is at risk except for the top 1% who, don't care because they'll be fine. Chinese cities not only need to improve their hardware by building better infrastructure to protect people from extreme weather, they also need to develop soft skills such as alert systems and weather monitoring, said Ma Jun, founder of the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs. Local governments need to be able to send information quickly to people who need it during an emergency, he said. Henan, like most provinces in China, doesn't have an effective emergency response system. In the capital Zhengzhou, 14 people drowned after the subway flooded and trapped them in carriages for more than 3 hours. The government is now facing questions over why the subway hadn't stopped operating earlier or whether a better evacuation protocol could have saved lives. The city's weather department said it sent 6 red alerts for intense rainstorms that day, but the warnings didn't get much attention from the public or other government departments. Yeah, so that, considering this is China, right? It should have been sent. I don't know if they should be sending it up and then sending it back down again, so it gets through every single level of the government. China hasn't done enough to prepare its cities for more extreme weather, says Liu from Greenpeace. The only government-led climate adaptation project was launched 4 years ago. It covered 28 cities, even though China has over 100 cities with populations above 1 million. By the end of 2020, the cities will have significant improvement in their adaptability, and people in the cities will have greater awareness of climate change. The country's top economic planner and housing ministry said in a document launching the program in 2017. There haven't been any updates since. Dr. Welp, lots of tabs. Oh my God, dude. Yeah. Well, this is stuff that I've been planning to cover that I just haven't gotten to. So yeah, but my other tabs are like, my other windows are like this too. Too much to cover, not enough time. My RAM, it's fine actually. I upgraded my computer and I actually have 64 gigs of RAM. I'm usually sitting at 20 plus gigs. I'm at 22 gigs right now. I think the most I've seen is almost 30 gigs of RAM. Like the other windows aren't active yet, so that's probably why it's lower. If I did activate them, it's probably a little bit higher because Chrome can be quite the hog. I think I saw almost 30 gigs when I was playing a game and had some other stuff going on. But now, yeah, haven't seen anywhere over 30. Yeah, Ram's good. Ram's good. While floods cause death and destruction every year, the devastating scenes from this year's rains in Henan have spurred unprecedented discussion in state media on the internet about what China needs to do to adapt. Experts have advocated for educating the public about the risks of the most common hazards, optimizing emergency protocols, and boosting financial and insurance programs. Public discussion hasn't been this focused on the annual floods since July 12th, when 79 people were killed in Beijing as the city was hit by the heaviest rains in decades. How did you choose to focus on eco-related stuff? Has this been lifelong? It started with climate change, honestly, when all that stuff has come in. And I have my own policy site, so environment and sustainability is kind of a huge part of it, especially because of climate change. I mean, with as horrible as climate change is, effectively, there's going to be no real life left on Earth in the next 300 years. And either we have to step up and do something about it and engage in radical levels of change, or there will be nothing left on this planet. So it's more of a, as you get into politics, at least as I've gotten into politics, this has become obviously more and more important because it's a human extinction level concern. But prior to climate change, it hasn't been a huge thing, but sustainability and stuff has been important. Once climate change became an issue, it is perhaps one of the most important issues that we're dealing with. It is the most important. It is a human extinction level event. Yeah, we typically cover the 3 C's here: capitalism, coronavirus, climate change, and then we do some like future tech, sustainability tech, and that sort of thing. And that's actually, we'll be covering some of that stuff here today. The articles I'll be covering today is a bit more diverse than I normally do. We start with the doomerism first and 2 articles, and then we go into some tech. Yes, circular crops in Senegal, then we get into fusion and the internet, and then, well, we get into Afghanistan after that. Assuming we get to it. Okay, there we go. Oh, fucking... Okay, well, we're done with that one, fortunately, because I've been having a bitch of a time getting through these fucking paywalls. Yeah, I'm full doomer here. I already got rid of this. In my policies, I do also talk about how we should redesign cities from the ground up to be sustainable, self-sufficient, and to deal with climate change, using even something like earth scrapers going into the ground, to help to protect from the heat that's going to be coming, and also building up to something like an Atlas pillar, and then tying that to a space elevator, to an orbital loop, and then getting to space that way. How are you eco-friendly in everyday life? Not asking for it to prove yourself. We recycle as much as we can. Try to go as organic as we can. I mean, that's not necessarily well, it is getting rid of some pesticides. That's the big thing right there. Recycle like a madman. Although, of course, that doesn't mean that the recycling actually gets done. So, yeah. No, I wish. If I could afford an electric car, I would. I would kill to get a Tesla for my wife and I. Especially, Tesla's rolling out the virtual power plant, right? Tying together the Tesla power walls and eventually the cars into a giant energy microgrid or macro grid. Oh, and then of course the Tesla tiles. Yeah, if I had the money to do that, I would do that. I don't know about the most efficient. I haven't really looked into the statistics in the comparisons between them, but I I like Tesla cars and what they offer, especially when you get into the Powerwall and their solar tiles. Just the whole Tesla package is really alluring, especially with the virtual power plant they're rolling out. Actually, they have it out in like I think one city where they're using it, and it's going to be big. It's going to be a big, very big thing. Although it's not necessarily. We need much larger systemic change than just what Tesla is doing. Like I talk in my policies, right? Get off fossil fuels, shift to sustainable energy. Specifically for baseload energy, we should be shifting to geothermal and tidal. And that's something the government can throw billions, if not $1 trillion at, and then get us off of fossil fuels as quickly as we can. And that could be done. You know, within 5 to 10 years, we could get that done if the money was invested in it. And of course, we can use solar, like especially the sorts of infrastructure that Tesla is using as a way of giving us that extra energy as we're building up the geothermal and the tidal energy. Most efficient electric cars 2021. Okay, so these are smart cars, so I wouldn't count those. It's a full-size sedan. Okay, Hyundai Ioniq. Tesla would be number 2 at 4.4. That's interesting. So yeah, this would be probably number 2 in full-size sedans, at least according to this. While Tesla themselves may be eco-focused, I personally think that Elon is careless with eco stuff like Las Vegas Tunnel. Yeah, Las Vegas Tunnel is a fucking waste of space. We watched a video on this, how Elon Musk is not our friend, that sort of a thing. Honestly, that was just for testing out his technology and, you know, selling more cars. Yeah, like I think it's in Discord, the video. But if he was really serious about the economy, it would have been, or about the environment, he wouldn't have been putting fucking Teslas down there. It would have been a mass transportation. And anything other than mass transportation is a fucking complete waste. Complete waste. And it's just there for him to make money. So yeah, not a fan of that. We've watched a few videos on that, and it's a fucking waste, complete waste. A lot of what he's doing currently, honestly, it's all about preparation for going to Mars. Like Starlink is about prepping, you know, for internet for Mars. Boring companies about drilling holes in Mars, right? All that sort of stuff. Electric cars, the automation. He's got a robot coming out too. If you haven't seen that, the Tesla robot. So this is going to be about automation and setting up the tech needed for going to Mars and being in space. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's cool the stuff that he's doing, because he's doing some amazing things that need to be done. But unfortunately, his drive isn't saving humanity from extinction. It's about profit, which is always the problem with billionaires and millionaires, right? You've got the space race between the billionaires. You know, of course, Musk and SpaceX is way ahead of everyone. And you've got Bezos and fucking, what's the other guy? Jumping into space just to say he can, when they could be using their billions and billions to save humanity from extinction. They don't care about that. It's just Teslas, and secondly, it's just a loop, not an actual good transportation route. Either do right. Yeah, exactly right. And that's exactly right. And that the reason why, if they let, I don't know if he won the bid or whatever, but you know, there's a level of Musk worship, which I get. But the numbers, I don't know if they screwed over on the numbers or what, and made him say, yeah, we could do those numbers, but actually didn't, in which case their asses should be sued. But yeah, it should have been an all electric mass transportation, train, maglev train, Hyperloop or something, right? He's not into Hyperloop. He's not actually doing that. Other companies are, but that would have been a way to do this. Actually putting his money where his ideas are, turning that into a Hyperloop going back and forth instead of bullshit Tesla cars. It's bullshit. It is bullshit. I'll check and see if I have a link here. I don't know if I put it into my Discord. Let's look up Tesla. I don't think so. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yeah, Musk. There we go. Oh, come on. Links in there don't like being. Oh, son of a bitch. Come on. Click, you bastard. Yeah, in OBS, I can't click on the fucking links all the time. Hold on, let me go to Twitch. Yeah, I saw the video of them announcing it, and she was trying so hard just to make it sound amazing. I'm assuming that's.
As you
yes.
descend the escalator into the loop station, you see the Teslas wait.
Yeah, we watched that video too about this very thing. Yeah, it's pretty cringy that she's trying that hard to make it sound amazing when it's a complete waste of space. Complete waste of space. Just Tesla's going, yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's slower, and it's actually slower than the actual, isn't it slower than the actual highway that's nearby? I think it is. Yeah, it's such a waste. Such a massive waste. Again, he's doing good things, good research, good technology, but he's not doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it to help, prevent climate change, but he's not specifically implementing it in ways that's targeted toward that. I mean, he's got billions of dollars, and those billions of dollars could be used for doing lots of things. Oh, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate that. Well, have a great night. Have a great night. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Okay. So we've got here, the Middle East is running out of water, and parts of it are becoming uninhabitable. Now, we've talked about this sort of stuff before. Game over, man. So let's go ahead and check out this. Does it have captions?
From a lush, natural paradise to a dry, salty desert, global warming is literally evaporating what once was the largest lake in the entire Middle East, Lake Urmia in Iran, the sixth largest salt lake in the world.
All around Lake Urmia, you can see the impact of the global climate emergency on the communities here, on the people, their livelihoods, and of course also their future. The authorities tell us today Lake Urmia is less than half the size of what it used to be.
The shrinkage is due in part to dam projects around here, but mostly due to years of severe drought as our planet gets hotter. Ahad Ahmadi was a tourist photographer on the boardwalk in what used to be the beach resort Sharaf Khaneh. Believe it or not, this photo was only taken in 1995, when tourists still flocked here, he says. People would come here for swimming and would use the mud for therapeutic purposes. They would stay here for several days, he says. The ferry boats many used to cross the lake now lay stranded on the salty crust, slowly rusting away. This Google Maps animation shows just how fast Lake Urmia has shrunk, going from 5,400 square kilometers in size to just 2,500 in about 30 years.
Wow.
Lack of rain and water shortages are a problem all across Iran. Precipitation in Iran is down by more than 50% this year, according to the country's Center for Drought and Crisis Management. Severe lack of water recently led to protests, some violent, in the southwest of the country. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei saying he understands the protesters and that their issues must be addressed. Iran's new president saying he has understood the message. The matters have been detected, and I assure the people that the solutions have been delineated, and we have benefited from the views of experts and scholars, and this will urgently be dealt with, he said. At Lake Urmia, water shortage is not the only problem. The dusty, salty ground left behind when the lake receded led to salt storms, causing eye infections and respiratory problems for people around here. The local Environmental Protection Agency planted these bushes, which they say mostly succeeded in stopping the worst effects. As the bushes grow here, they have more leaves, and the moving sand gets trapped inside, he says, so it acts as a trap which keeps the sand underneath it. Iranian authorities say they've made saving Lake Urmia a priority, and that a halt to new dam projects and diverting other water sources towards the lake have at least slowed its decline. But farmer Kumar's Purjebeli shows me his main concern. The water he's able to get from his well is very salty, killing off many of the buds on his tomato vines and slowly causing his walnut trees to wither.
Oh no.
The day the soil will become unfarmable is not far away, he says. When you water the earth to a depth of 110 centimeters, it infiltrates the soil and the salt will stay there and its level increases every year. And the salt concentration in Lake Urmia is dramatically increasing as the water body shrinks. Microorganisms that flourish in salty water have dyed much of what's left of the lake in a reddish-pink color. The deputy head of this province's Environmental Protection Agency tells me he believes there are now about 6 billion tons of salt around the lake. Still, he says he's confident they can stop the lake from drying up. Pausing all dam construction projects has been very effective, he says, but some of the rivers that feed the lake were full of sediment, so the water didn't reach all the way to here. We've cleaned up the riverbeds to increase the water inflow. Those measures are making a big difference, the authorities say, but they are also under no illusion. What they urgently need here is more rain to stop Lake Urmia, a natural treasure of this region, from vanishing into thin and salty air. Fred Pleitgen, CNN, Urmia, Iran.
All right, so there's the video. The Middle East is running out of water, and parts of it.
In the Kenyan county of Nyeri, coffin makers say they have never been so busy. Over the past few weeks, the Delta variant has...
The Middle East is running out of water, and parts of it are becoming uninhabitable. Lake Urmia, Iran. The ferries that once shuttled tourists to and from little islets in Iran's Lake Urmia sit rusty, unable to move on what is rapidly becoming a salt plain. Just 2 decades to go, Urmia was the Middle East's biggest lake, its local economy a thriving tourist center of hotels and restaurants. People would come here for swimming and would use the mud for therapeutic purposes. They would stay here at least for a few days, said Ahad Ahmed, a journalist in the former port town of Sharf Kana, as he showed CNN photos of people enjoying the lake in 1995. Lake Urmia's demise has been fast. It has more than halved its size from 5,400 square kilometers, 2,085 square miles in the 1990s to just 2,500 square kilometers or 965 square miles today, according to the Department of Environmental Protection of West Azerbaijan, one of the Iranian provinces where the lake is located. There are now concerns it will disappear entirely. Such problems aren't familiar in many parts of the Middle East where water is simply running out. Such problems are familiar. The region has witnessed persistent drought and temperatures so high that they are barely fit for human life. Add climate change to water mismanagement and overuse, and projections for the future of water here are grim. Some Middle Eastern countries, including Iran, Iraq, and Jordan, are pumping huge amounts of water from the ground for irrigation as they seek to improve their food self-sufficiency. Charles Iceland, the global director of water at the World Resources Institute, told CNN. That's happening as they experience decreases in rainfall. Again, when you're looking at this sort of a thing, shifting to vertical farming is pretty much what's going to have to happen. It uses like 10% of the land and 10% of the water. So if we're getting less water, we need to use farming techniques that use significantly less water. And vertical farming, aquaponic, aeroponic, all that sort of stuff is the way it needs to be done. And just pumping it up from the ground isn't going to get there because the temperature is going to keep rising. They're using more water than is available routinely through rain, and so groundwater levels are consequently falling because you're taking water out faster than it's being replenished by the rainfall. That's what's happening in Iran, where a vast network of dams sustains an agricultural sector that drinks up about 90% of the water the country uses. Both declining rainfall and increasing demand in these countries are causing many rivers, lakes, and wetlands to dry up, Iceland said. The consequences of water becoming scarcer are dire. Areas could be uninhabitable. Tensions over how to share and manage water resources like rivers and lakes could worsen. More political violence could erupt. And of course, this is the beginning of the end. And maybe the Middle East will be the beginning of where the wars and the violence is going to start over water. The water wars will be beginning in the next few decades. In Iran, Urmia has shrunk largely because so many people have exploited it, and some of the dams built in its basin, mainly for irrigation, have reduced the flow of water into the lake. Iran's water woes are already a deadly issue. In 1 week in July, at least 3 protesters were killed in clashes with security officers in demonstrations against water shortages in the country's southwest. The country is experiencing some of the driest conditions in 5 decades, according to the country's meteorological service. Middle East's winters are projected to get drier and more. The more the world warms, and while summers will be wetter, the heat is expected to offset its water gains, according to scientists' latest projections published earlier this month by the UN Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change Report, IPCC. The problem is, with this whole temperature rise, whatever rainfall will come will evaporate because it's so hot. Mansour El-Mazri, director of the Center of Excellence for Climate Change Research at Saudi Arabia's King Abdulaziz University, told CNN. The other thing is the rain is not necessarily going to be usual rain. There's going to be extreme rainfall, meaning that floods like those happening in China, in Germany, and Belgium, these floods will be a big problem for the Middle East. This is really a big climate change issue. Yeah, it is. That's exactly right. We're going to get less rain, and the rain we do get is going to come down in torrents, and people are going to die, people are going to starve. It's going to be horrible. So we require radical change now to stop the worst of it. And of course, that's not going to get done. Game over, man. Game over. A study by the Iranian Energy Ministry found the demise of the lake was more than 30% attributable to climate change. These changes are not only having an impact on the amount of water available, they're also affecting quality. Lake Urmia is hypersaline, meaning it's very salty. As it has shrunk, the salt concentration has increased and gotten so extreme, using it for irrigation is damaging farmers' crops. Kumar's Pujabeli, who farms tomatoes, sunflowers, sugar beet, eggplant, and walnuts near the lake, told CNN the salty water has been disastrous. The day the soil will become farmable is not far away, he said. In Jordan, one of the most water-stressed countries in the world, people have become used to living with very little water. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that Jordanians will have to halve their per capita use of water by the end of the century. Most Jordanians on lower incomes will live on 40 liters a day for all their needs, drinking, bathing, washing clothes, and dishes, for example. The average American uses around 10 times that amount. In many Jordanians' homes, water isn't necessarily available every day, said Daniel Rosenfeld. Wow. A professor with the program of atmospheric sciences at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Jordan now has a critical shortage of water. Water reaches the houses in Jordan once or twice a week, even in the capital Amman. The Middle East is at the center of an increasingly water-stressed world. Water stress, which occurs when the demand for water exceeds the available supply, is already starkest in the Middle East and its surrounding countries, and is projected to get worse in the next decade. Imagine that, because it's hotter here, right? As the temperature goes up, the water is going to go down. So Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, yep. Groundwater levels in parts of the country are dropping by well over 1 meter a year, studies show. Wow. And waves of refugees from many countries in the region have put extra pressure on the already stressed resource. The Secretary General of Jordan's Water Authority, Bashar Batena, told CNN that the country needs more funding from the rest of the world to deal with this increase in demand for water. Jordan bore the heavy load of the Syrian refugee crisis on behalf of the international community and was deeply impacted regarding water. Refugees cost the water sector over $600 million a year, while Jordan received a fraction of this amount from the international community, he said. He added that Jordan had much less rain in 2020 than it did in the previous year, putting more than a quarter of the water resources at risk and having drinking water sources. But it's not only climate change. The country relies on the Jordan River system, which also runs through Israel, the West Bank, Syria, and Lebanon, and dams building along the rivers has severely cut the flow of water flow to Jordan. Jordan, too, uses canals to redirect the river's waters for irrigation. Conflict has flared several times around the river system in the past. Again, shifting to vertical farming is what needs to be done here. It's a trans-boundary problem also seen in other parts of the region along the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, as well as in the northern Africa along the Nile. Jordan, Israel, and Syria have gotten better at coordinating management of the river system they rely on, but tensions often erupt. Experts have long warned that water scarcity worsened by climate change could lead to more conflict. Of course it will. Jordan has little choice but to buy large amounts of water from Israel, which I'm sure they love, which has an enormous desalination program in which it removes salt from seawater to make it fit for human consumption. But desalination is energy intensive, using up huge amounts of energy that is not yet green and renewable, and only adds to global warming, a major driver of water scarcity in the first place. Yeah, exactly. And so there are definitely sustainable methods of doing desalination in large scale. I mean, using solar energy, like focusing the sun to heat up the water to get it to evaporate, that sort of a thing. I mean, that's all very, very possible. As the climate continues to warm and water runs scarce, part of the solution in the Middle East will have to involve reducing water use in agriculture. Vertical farming. I'm saying that can also mean changing the kind of food farmers grow and export, Rosenfeld said. In Israel, for example, we used to grow a lot of oranges, but at some point we realized that we are exporting water that we don't have, he said, adding that crops could also be engineered to be more resilient to heat and dryness. Or just vertical farming. And El-Mazrui from King Abdulaziz University said the dams could be better organized to consider changing rain patterns. Coordinating on managing rivers that flow across countries also has to improve. But that's not going to help a farmer whose family has owned the land for generations and can't necessarily move to wetter climes or has little control over where a neighboring country might build a dam. Yeah, again, dropping the money, having these farmers shift to vertical farming is what needs to be done. Period. Like a broken record here, right? Broken record. Rod Al-Tamami, a 54-year-old father of 5 who lives in Diyala province northeast of Baghdad, relies on the Diyal River, a tributary to the Tigris River, for water. The Diyal has been drying up for years and has forced Al-Tamami to have his fruit production across his 3 farms. He and his fellow farmers are working on a water rationing schedule, and he sometimes waits for up to a month for the water to come. This dependence on more water to ensure food security could ironically put the availability of food at risk. Farmers are only going to keep farming under these difficult conditions for so long. That's what plagues Al-Tamami's mind all the time. Many farmers, including me, are seriously considering leaving this profession, which is inherited from grandfather, and to start looking more for more profitable jobs that guarantee a better future for our children. Yeah, again, the sort of thing, right? It should be concentrating on vertical farming and sustainable energy. Whole way. Okay, so now we're going to be off of climate doomerism. Come on. Why don't you let me copy it? God damn it. Son of a bitch. Hold on. Get it from the URL. Then I gotta copy it, gotta go through, rip it out. All right, hold on, here we go. There you go. So I have 2 articles on this. It's pretty interesting. Kind of see a, oh, is there, there's one that has a video. Hold on, let's go over here. No, this one doesn't have a video. Okay, maybe not. All right, so Senegalese plant circular gardens in green wall defense against the desert. Every night, Musa Kamara works at his bakery preparing hundreds of loaves of bread, I assume. But at sunrise, instead of going home to sleep, he now starts a second backbreaking job, hoeing the earth and tending newly sown seeds in a specially designed circular garden. Kamara, 47, believes the garden will prove even more importantly. Okay, will prove even more important than the bakery in the future for feeding his extended family, including 25 children. Holy crap. Extended family, 25 children. Wow. And other residents of Baki, Da, a Senegalese town near the border with Mauritania. He is part of a project that aims to create hundreds of gardens known as Tulu Kur in Senegal's Wolof language. The organizers hope will boost food security, reduce regional desertification, and engage thousands of community workers. This project is incredibly important, said Kamara, finally at home after a night spent at the bakery, followed by 10 hours of cultivating edible and medicinal plants in the garden. When you grow one tree over 20 years, people and animals will benefit from it, said Kamara, whose commitment and hard work have earned him a role of garden caretaker. So yeah, we're fighting back the desert is an important thing that can help deal with climate change as well. Again, planting more greens is a good thing, although for long-term food sources, we need to concentrate on vertical farming. The project marks a new, more local approach to what is known as the Green Wall Initiative, launched in 2007, that aims to slow desertification across Africa's Sahel region, the arid belt south of the Sahara Desert, by planting an 8,000-kilometer line of trees from Senegal to Djibouti. The wider initiative has only managed to plant 4% of the pledged 100 million hectares of trees, and completing it by 2030 is planned. It could cost up to $43 billion, according to the United Nations estimates. By contrast, the Tulu Kur gardens have flourished in the 7 months since the project began and now number around 24. That's it, said Senegal's Reforestation Agency. 3 months after a garden is completed, its agents begin a series of monthly visits over 2 years to assess the progress. Why is the government just paying the people to go do this? I mean, it's a lot of money, but you have to do it. Gardens hold plants and trees resistant to hot, dry climates, including papaya, mango, moringa, and sage. Circular beds allow roots to grow inwards, trapping liquids and bacteria and improving water retention and composting. Project manager Karine Fakuri said it was important that local people felt fully engaged. This is not an external project where someone comes from the outside and tells people what to do. It is something entirely indigenous. Okay, that's cool. The gardens are partly a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Senegal shut its border early last year, tried to curb the spread of the coronavirus, cutting its imports and exposing rural communities' dependence on foreign food and medicines. This prompted the Reforestation Agency to seek ways to help villages become more self-sufficient. And honestly, this is what countries need to be doing as much as they can. Trying to be more self-sufficient in every way possible. Obviously, they're not going to be able to become completely self-sufficient in every single possible way, but you can. You can do a lot. Ali Nadaye, a Senegalese agricultural engineer based in Brazil who got stuck in Senegal when the borders closed, stressed the importance of smaller actions that are permanent. 1,000 Toulouse is already 1.5 million trees, said Nadaye, the mastermind behind the circular bed design. So if we start, we can make a lot. Yeah, and the issue here is, again, watering them from the top. Trying to engage some level of underground watering will probably be better in the long term because it'll help reduce evaporation of that water. Not all gardens have succeeded. In the remote village of Walalde, the desert has already begun to reclaim the land set aside, and there have been problems with the solar-powered pump. Oh, that sucks. Fix the fucking pump. But in the eastern town of Canel, the garden is thriving. Its caretakers solved a water pump issue by digging traditional irrigation canals, concrete wall, and guard dogs help keep out rodents that would eat the lush mint and hibiscus plants inside. And of course, they're looking for as low tech as they can. There's other, what is there? There's other desertification organizations out there. Some they bring in farm animals and have them graze through and poop through it, and crunch all the poop and stuff down into the thing. They put seeds in it and have that stuff grow. I mean, they should use this in addition to other de-desertification methods. You could actually, ahead of these, have those animals go and kind of start creating that wall to help protect them from what's going on here. Need more than one technique to work on this. Kamara the baker believes the gardens could offer a further benefit, discouraging sub-Saharan Africans from embarking on long, perilous journeys as illegal migrants in search of better lives in Europe and America. The day people realize the full potential of the Great Green Wall, they will stop these dangerous migration routes where you can lose your life at sea, he said. It's better to stay, work the soil, cultivate, and see what you can earn. Yeah, well, if the government was going to be paying people to go ahead and do this, this would be an amazing thing. There could be a lot going on here. So good stuff there. I've got one more article on this. So this is a much larger version of it, I think. So you look at that. Go and throw that in here. Where is the title? The hell are you, title? There it is. That's just another article covering the same thing. This one's pretty short. Hold on. All right, this is from Interesting Engineering. Farmers are creating circular gardens in the Sahara Desert. Here's why. They look a lot like crop circles. Senegalese farmers are on their way to building their own green wall, but theirs will come with a twist. It will be completely green. If you were to fly over the town of Baki Diawe in northeast Senegal, the sight of newly sowed seeds and carefully planned circular gardens that look like the unblinking eye of the desert would surely catch your attention. The gardens, known locally as Toulouse, are the most recent incarnation of the Great Green Wall Project. They were designed by Ali Nadaye, a Senegalese agricultural engineer who couldn't leave Senegal when the borders were closed. The initiative, which was launched in 2007 by the African Union with support from the European Union, the World Bank, and the United Nations, was originally intended to help prevent desertification by stifling the Sahara as it moved south. The plan was to plant a belt of trees 10 miles wide and 4,350 miles long across the Sahel region from Senegal to Djibouti. Yeah, so here's the map. Look. all the way across. And then again, they could, as I was saying, start with the de-desertification methods and kind of create that wall by putting the animals through there and try and push it back, and then just keep pushing it back. Then as you have the animals go through here and help turn this into a scrubland of sorts, then it becomes easier. You got that border between the green wall here, and which helps create a much better environment for them to grow. And then you also have a place started where you can expand the green wall further. However, the program ran into a number of problems, including the difficulty of planting trees in the parched savanna and the lack of funding. According to the UN estimates cited by Reuters, the overall program has only managed to plant 4% of the pledged 100 million hectares of trees, and completing it by 2030 as intended might cost up to $43 billion, which we've covered. Circular garden represents a new, more localized approach to the Green Wall project. Circular trees to halt the desert. Plants and trees resistant to hot, dry climes such as papaya and mango can be found in the gardens, and one of the inner curving rows is even dedicated to medicinal plants. 3 months following the completion of a garden, its agents began a 2-year series of monthly inspections to check progress. But you might wonder, why are they planted in a circular pattern? The reason for that is circular beds allowing roots to grow inwards. This traps liquids and bacteria and enhances water retention. Now, I'm not sure what the difference is between circular and square, right? I mean, why is circular better for that sort of thing? Because they're all going to be growing downwards, right? So don't know about that. According to Senegal's reforestation agency, the Touleur Gardens, which were apparently partly a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, in number roughly 24, only 20, today have thrived since the project began 7 months ago. When Senegal had to shut its border to the coronavirus, the villages had to become more self-sufficient since many were dependent on foreign food and medicine, so the project was born. Okay, there you go. It said pretty much everything else that the other one said, so I probably shouldn't have read it, but at least there's a nice, pretty picture here. And again, if, so you see buildings here? I mean, they could put up like a wall, build a wall of, not cement, like adobe around it. Then the people could live there. See this giant ring of adobe around here with houses all under the ground. So it's cooler. And then you put the solar panels around the outside and use that to power the whole thing and to help protect this a little bit. All right, so there's that. Now, this I've seen a lot, but I haven't read through it, and I don't know how good this is. Whenever you see this sort of thing, it's like, but is it really? I mean, it's, nuclear fusion is always what, 20 years away? I'm hoping that eventually it's going to be not 20 years away and just 5. So hopefully, as we get more of these, quote, breakthroughs, that we get closer and closer to actually something that matters. Nuclear scientists using lasers the size of 3 football fields say they generated a huge amount of energy. Lasers the size of 3 football fields? That's not going to be sustainable. Okay, let's see what they say. Nuclear scientists using lasers the size of 3 football fields said Tuesday they had generated a huge amount of energy from fusion, possibly offering the hope for development of a clean new energy source. Experts focused their giant array of almost 200 laser beams onto a tiny spot to create a mega blast of energy, 8 times more than they had ever done in the past. Okay, well that's a big number, but how much? What percentage more than they created is that? Although the energy only lasted for a very short time, just 100 trillionths of a second. Okay, there you go. It took scientists closer to the holy grail of fusion ignition, the moment when they are creating more energy than they are using. Okay. This result is a historic advance for inertial confinement fusion research, said Kim Boudil, the director of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which operates the National Ignition Facility in California, where the experiment took place this month. Nuclear fission is considered by some scientists to be a potential energy of the future, particularly because it produces little waste with no greenhouse gases. It differs from fission, a technique currently used in nuclear power plants where the bonds of heavy atomic nuclei are broken to release energy. In the fusion process, two light atomic nuclei are married to create a heavy one. In this experiment, scientists used two isotopes of hydrogen, giving rise to helium. This is a process that is at work in the stars, including our sun. The NIF teams have done an extraordinary job, said Professor Stephen Rose, co-director of the Center for Research in this field at Imperial College London. This is the most significant advance in inertial fusion since its beginning in 1972. But warned Jeremy Chittenden, co-director of the same center in London, making this a usable source of energy is not going to be easy. Turning this concept into a renewable source of electrical power will probably be a long process and involve overcoming significant technical challenges. Yeah, I imagine that we'll see this to be completely doomer here, right? We'll see this breakthrough when basically there's nothing left of humanity. Most of humanity has died off due to climate change. Someone will finally figure it out, and then maybe humanity can be saved by that. But I'm not gonna get my hopes up. All right, there's that. So here's something interesting. The internet is actually controlled by 14 people who hold 7 secret keys. Isn't that crazy? This sounds like something out of a Dan Brown book, but it isn't. The whole internet is controlled by 7 actual physical keys. The Guardian's James Ball was recently allowed to observe the highly secure ritual known as a key ceremony. The people conducting the ceremony are part of an organization called the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN. ICANN is responsible for assigning numerical internet addresses to websites and computers and translating them into normal web addresses that people type into their browsers. For instance, 64.27.101.155, type this into your browser and you'll be taken to Business Insider's webpage. But www.businessinsider.com is easier for people to remember. ICANN maps the numbers, easier for computers to use, with words easier for humans to use. Yep, so it's called a friendly name. The web address www. If someone were to gain control of ICANN's database, that person would control the internet. For instance, the person could send people to fake bank websites instead of real bank websites. On the other hand, if a calamity happened, the ICANN database could need to be rebuilt. So ICANN came up with a way to do that without entrusting too much control to any one person. It selected 7 people as key holders and gave each one an actual key to the internet. It selected 7 more people to be backup holders, 14 people in all. The physical keys unlock safe deposit boxes stashed around the world. Inside those boxes are smart key cards. Put the 7 smart cards together and you have the master key. The master key is really some computer code, password of sorts that can access the ICANN database. Holy crap. 4 times a year since 2010, the 7 key holders meet for the key ceremony where they generate a new master key, a new password. The security to be admitted to the ceremony is intense, Ball reports, and involves passing through a series of locked doors using key codes and hand scanners until entering a room so secure that no electronic communications can escape it. Okay. The group conducts the ritual, then each person files out of the room one by one, and they all head to a restaurant and party. I bet. Here's Ball's detailed account of the ceremony that most recently occurred. Okay, we'll take a look at that in just a little bit. Here's a video of the very first key ceremony conducted in 2010. Skip to, 1 minute 58. All right, let's do that.
I would compare this to the...
Hold on. 1 minute 58 seconds. Here we go.
People that will be watching every part of this step. Some will be participating in this process as well. The people will be brought into the room. Filming begins. The whole ceremony is filmed. It's not anything where people hum or have some sort of strange ritual or anything like that. I think sometimes it gets misunderstood. It's just a very formal process. Then there'll be a process of actually pulling out equipment from various safes.
These are the Class 5, GSA Class 5 safes that are used by the federal government. They do have seismic sensors, and they also have door sensors, which would basically lock us out when the alarm systems are turned on. You can't leave the room if this door is not closed and locked.
There's alarm systems in every part of this facility, so that any unauthorized personnel immediately set off alarms and stuff. Equipment's pulled out. We go through the steps and we generate this key inside this cryptographic box. And then once that key is generated, we'll have printouts with what is called a hash of the key, a shorthand version, not the full key, which is a 204-8-bit key, but not a full, but a short version of that we'll hand out to the participants, and they'll be able to say, we were there, we saw it generated. Not only that, we saw that, there were no cards up anyone's sleeves. We saw the process, we saw it on the monitors. We attested this being generated properly. In order to engender trust in this process, we've made sure to bring in, we've got at least 21 trusted community representatives, what we call it. For this particular meeting, we'll have 14 of them. They're involved in the process in the sense that they will have control over various smart cards that is generated in this process that enable this cryptographic device to operate. So once this key is generated, not only were they part of the generation, but now every time we want to use this, ICANN by itself cannot use this. We need the involvement of the internet community. There are two sets of people. They are what we call crypto officers and recovery key shareholders. In the highly unlikely event that we lose both East Coast and West Coast facilities, ICANN has built two sets, similar level of security and safety and backups. If they all go away, we need some way to recover. So what these recovery key shareholders hold is a smart card, which is a piece of a key, but not the root key, but piece of a key used to encrypt the key in tamper-evident bags, standard tamper-evident bags that banks use, and they're responsible for those. So, and we've set it up so that we need a minimum of 5 of those people to come together to recreate that encryption key. The crypto officers, on the other hand, we're going to give them physical keys to a safe deposit box that we have built inside one of these two safes that actually has the smart cards in there. And you might ask, well, why aren't we giving them the cards? This system has to operate. It cannot fail. So if we have a 9/11 situation or something where these people cannot travel here, we have to be able to get at these keys. So in the extreme case where we need to recover this thing, we can drill.
So the idea is just to keep it as safe as we possibly can and provide assurance that it hasn't been tampered with, that nobody has had access to it since the last authorized event where the key was brought out to be used. So that's why we're very careful taking it out, and we're very careful storing it, and we make sure that that whole time between people being in the room, we have a complete audit trail with surveillance and everything else to be able to demonstrate to the satisfaction of anybody who cares to ask the question, the secret key is safe.
More has happened here today than it meets the eye. An infrastructure has been created for a hierarchical security system, which can be purposed and repurposed in a number of different ways. And so I would predict that although we started out putting this system together to assure that the domain name lookups return valid internet addresses, that in the long run, this hierarchical structure of trust will be applied to a number of other functions that require strong authentication. And so you will have seen a new major milestone in the internet story.
Generating the 204-bit RSA key pair. Okay.
There you go. Fascinating. Is there an article for this? No, it's just the video. That's it. Actually, no, here we go. Yeah, we did read it. No, not the whole thing. On the other hand, if calamity happened, the ICANN database need to be rebuilt. So ICANN came up with a way to do that without entrusting too much control to any one person. Okay, actually, we did read that. Okay, yeah, we did read it. Okay, so there you go. Interesting stuff, huh? I had no idea that was the way this was done. But it's good to know there's a lot of security involved. Go away. Okay, so this is that article that was linked to from there. Oh, we won't read this. That was enough on that. Oracle. Okay, so here we go. Now we got into the stuff that I had prepared from last time. All right, this is from Jacobin. America has a moral obligation to allow Afghan refugees in. Yeah, and my policies talk about this, right? They say basically if a country has messed with another country, you should be required to accept refugees in from that country. In this case, the United States pretty much has to accept refugees from almost every single country in the world. Because especially Central and South America, Africa, right? We've been destroying the Middle East and messing with these countries just for fun and corporate profit for decades and decades. The United States has made Afghanistan its imperial football for decades. If American elites really care about alleviating human suffering as they claim, they must open the door to refugees immediately. So, okay, another annoyance here, we need to stop using elites. It should be if the American predatory class, the American predator class, actually, if America's predatory class is probably better. That's what it should be. They're not elite. They're not better than everyone else. They're just a bunch of fucking psychopaths. Murdering for fun and profit. Afghans gather on a roadside near the military part of the airport in Kabul on August 20, 2021. August 20, 2021. Hoping to flee from the country after the Taliban's military takeover of Afghanistan. Okay. In the spring of 1975, as North Vietnamese forces approached Saigon, it began to dawn on the President Gerald Ford that the government of South Vietnam was likely to collapse. Though it would be slow to act, Ford's administration finally appealed to Congress for $300 million in emergency funds it intended to put to use evacuating remaining Americans and as many as 175,000 South Vietnamese. Opposition to the plan was strongest among Senate Democrats, as was made plain by a speech given by one lawmaker on April 23rd, barely a week before North Vietnamese forces captured the presidential palace in Saigon. I do not believe the United States has an obligation, moral or otherwise, to evacuate foreign nationals. The United States has no obligation to evacuate 100,000 South Vietnamese. Okay, so this is in 75. Okay, so this is, we were a Democrat. Because prior to that, we had, this is Jim Crow era, so some of that was still, okay. Well, fuck that guy. The senator in question, oh, of course. Oh my God, of course. The senator in question was, of course, Joe fucking Biden, right? Whose opposition would ultimately fail to prevent the evacuation of roughly 135 Vietnamese. Biden's statement nonetheless articulated a sentiment that was clearly common in parts of America's political class at the time. Again, he worked with KKK people, right? And he worked against, he's just a shitty human being. With the country's cherished imperial honor diminished by defeat, many lawmakers evidently favored pushing the issue from their minds or even limited efforts at humanitarian relief. While the administration Biden now leads has quite aggressively rejected comparisons to the fall of Saigon, there are inarguably parallels between the situation today and that of the mid-70s. Once again, the steadfast determination of the American predatory class to play global policeman has ended in failure and catastrophe, and yet again, the prolonged deployment of America's terrifying military might have left a trail of death, destruction, and human chaos in its wake. Amid the ludicrous blame game now playing out in the media over who exactly is responsible for the country's defeat, there remains a basic truth that cannot be elided, namely that the United States has a moral obligation to offer shelter to as many Afghans as possible. The political atmosphere be damned. The reasons are so obvious that they should hardly need stating. We cannot know how the country would presently look if NATO's post-9/11 invasion had never taken place. What we do know is that the current state of affairs comes on the heels of 20 years of American-led policy, and that countless Afghans are now in urgent need of asylum. Over 2 million have reportedly fled the country. In 2020, some 44,000 had already requested asylum in Europe. Earlier this year, a bipartisan letter with the White House suggested that as many as 18,000 Afghans had applied for visas. A figure that is almost certainly higher today. As the New Republic's Matt Ford recently detailed, the current process for application is almost cartoonishly arduous, effectively involving some 14 different steps and requiring a series of filings and interviews that would be complicated to complete even outside of Afghanistan. To even have a chance of qualifying, applicants must provide documentation from a U.S.-backed employer, meaning that those in need of shelter who lack such a connection will be automatically excluded. The fact is, America's obligations go far beyond those who've aided its military and contractor forces. As an occupying power, that's key, as an occupying power, its own human rights record has been so poor that even the relatively Washington-friendly Human Rights Watch criticized it as early as 2004. Yeah, we have major human rights problems in this country. In this country, and as far as what we have inflicted upon the world. As a first-term senator in the mid-1970s, Joe Biden cynically insisted that America had no obligation, moral or otherwise, to the countless people whose lives had been threatened and thrown into chaos in the wake of its defeat. That sentiment is as callous and wrong today as it was in 1975. True statement. All right, guys, there you go. All right. From the Insider, the U.S. totally failed to stop the drug trade in Afghanistan, but the Taliban found a better way to cash in. Now, to be fair, this is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous statement. The United States was there for the drug trade, right? Not just for the U.S. government, specifically with the CIA and its drug trafficking as a way to fund their coups, right? That's the thing. But also the pharmaceutical industry, specifically the Sackler family, took advantage of all the opium that was available there to create the opioid crisis, as well as cash in on the opioid crisis that they created through their company. But also they cashed in on the opioid crisis by creating a drug to help deal with the opioid crisis, to which they were found guilty of, and they lost their company or something like that, or something. But that's little. That means very little when they've made billions and billions off destroying people's lives, and not just in the United States, but also here in Afghanistan. Afghan man harvests opium in a poppy field in a village in Golestan district of Farah province in May 2009. Look at that. Interesting. After 20 years and billions of dollars, the U.S. failed to stop the drug trade in Afghanistan. Okay, again, that they didn't fail to stop it. They weren't there to stop it. They were there to make sure that it continued on. So that's some false reporting here. While that trade remains lucrative to the CIA, evidence shows that the Taliban now makes more money from taxing goods, a sign of the group's growing sophistication. Afghanistan is the world's largest producer of opium, its largest cash crop, with annual exports valued at 1.5 billion and 3 billion in recent years, according to a 2018 report by the Special Inspector General for the Afghanistan Reconstruction, a U.S. watchdog agency. Since 2002, the U.S. has allocated roughly 8.97 billion to counter narcotics programs as a part of its reconstruction efforts, according to SIGAR's most recent quarterly report. Well, they could just tell the CIA to stop doing it and stop funding it. That would go a long way to helping stop the problem. But Afghanistan's drug trade, particularly that of opium, has thrived, rising steadily from a historic low in 2001 when the U.S. invaded. The Taliban banned opium in 2000. Okay, that's interesting. Cultivation of opium poppies and production of opium in... Oh, maybe that's why. Okay, this is... Okay, there's something... The Taliban banned opium in 2001, and then the United States invaded, right? We see some causality there. Cultivation of opium poppies and production of opium in Afghanistan both hit record highs in 2017, according to the SIGAR. The global area under opium cultivation fell the following years, but rebounded in 2020, which was primarily the result of an increase in opium poppy cultivations by 37% in Afghanistan, according to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. It's a total failure, John Sacco, the head of SIGAR, said of counter-narcotics efforts during a Defense Writers Group event with reporters on July 29th. Well, I mean, the United States, the U.S. military was protecting these fields. I'm not sure why this is even a conversation. I don't get the stupid here. The United States soldiers were out there protecting poppy fields. So the slant of this article is pretty fucking ridiculous. Despite U.S. counter-narcotics efforts, which included trying to develop the legal economy and to deter farmers and traffickers, SIGAR has said drug production and trafficking remain entrenched in Afghanistan. Well, you remove American soldiers from there, that will be a first good start. Remove them from protecting the opium fields would be the good start. There are a number of things we did in Afghanistan which were too difficult, so we just kicked the can. Narcotics, that was one, Sopko said. We basically kicked the can down, just gave up. At times, the trade continued with U.S. protection. Yeah, see, right here. That trade, an Afghan soldier in Poppy Field, okay, during a mission with U.S. soldiers in Kandahar province. Okay, so this is an Afghani soldier. Okay. According to Senator Chris Murphy, a congressional delegation in 2011 traveled to a recently recaptured part of the Herat province where, with U.S. protection, farmers could harvest crops and sell them rather than being forced to give them to the Taliban. Murphy and the others with the delegation noticed that the crops, which the farmers were now selling to the Taliban, were poppies. Of course they were. So the U.S. is here protecting the heroin trade that provides the Taliban with an income to continue the insurgency, which insurgency we are supposed to be fighting. Murphy recalled saying, well, of course, because if the Taliban was created and funded and armed by the U.S. government, I think it started under, it's either Carter or Reagan. Right, I know Reagan did a bunch of that, right? Maybe it started with Carter, and then the actual funding and everything really got heavy under the Reagan era, right? So exactly, again, this is all part of the CIA and funding these terrorist groups and drug trafficking to make sure the coups can continue. Afghanistan's diverse drug trade remains profitable, but the Taliban appears to have found a more complex and more lucrative enterprise, taxing goods and fuel in transit. An August 2021 report on economic activity in Nimruz province by the Overseas Development Institute, a British think tank, found that 5.1 million in revenues collected by the Taliban from the production and trade of illegal drugs was only a fraction of the 40.9 million income earned from taxing transit goods and fuel. Nimruz is a hub for drug refining. It borders Helmand province, a major drugs producing region, and has important border crossings with Iran and Pakistan. The Taliban's focus on taxing trade is visible in other areas it has captured in recent weeks. Afghan security force members check checks a vehicle at a checkpoint in Kunduz May 21st. Okay, so I wonder what this is. Wish they would tell us what it is. After the group captured the U.S.-built Sher Khan Bandar border crossing, an important gateway to Tajikistan and in the Kunduz province, in July, a Taliban spokesman told the Wall Street Journal that the routine work of the border, the customs, will be running as before. The reason is that we don't want to create problems for businessmen, for traders, for common people, the spokesman said. The trade and taxation dynamic may help explain the failures of the U.S. and other foreign efforts in Afghanistan. Humanitarian and development spending in Afghanistan is based on faulty estimates of licit, legal, and illicit resource flows, and military action has targeted drug labs on the mistaken premise that illegal drugs are the Taliban's primary source of revenue, the ODI report says. In addition to showing the Taliban's administrative acumen, the tax revenue may insulate the Taliban from outside pressure. Our results suggest that reducing funding for humanitarian and development projects might not be so persuasive to the Taliban because there are plenty of hidden sources of cash circulating, although these might not be applied to similar development or humanitarian purposes, the ODI report says. Thousands of people fled to the airports of Afghanistan, just trying to get out. Look at that. Okay, there you go. That is that article. All right. So, tell you what, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day for now. I'm kind of hungry right now, and I need to get something to eat. So, I'll leave this open for last minute comments, and then I will go ahead and call it a day. Anybody, anything? Anything? Questions, comments, suggestions? Anything? Anything? Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for gifting me with your time. I really, really do appreciate it. Everyone have a great week, and we will see you guys later on this week. I stream on Thursday at 5 and Saturday at 3 p.m. Central as well. So if you want to follow me at other places, you can check my About page. There's Discord, Facebook, blog, policy site, and all that sort of stuff over there. So, yeah, everyone have a great week, and we'll see you later.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue.